Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of ZB's Horsepower Talk. As always, I'm ZB, Zack Brown, and joining with me, as always, former 410 Sprint Car crew chief and mechanic, my dad, Jeff Brown. Dad, a lot to go over from a lot of action last week, a lot of stuff to dive into this week. Obviously, our top 5 father-son duo drivers in all of motorsports. We'll hit on that later, but the biggest news, obviously, they found some moonshine in North Wilkesboro underneath the speedway. That's probably the biggest headline in motorsports this week.
Yeah, that's got to be the biggest shocker in the country. Who'd have thought North Wilkesboro Speedway would have a moonshine cave there? There's my shock face.
Yeah.
What I think they need to do, they need to preserve it, put a still in there, and kind of have it like a little museum or something, showing the roots of NASCAR. I think that would be freaking cool. But they'll probably just fill it in.
I'm wondering if some of the moonshine's left over. You imagine that fermenting for all that time? God, that's gonna be some strong stuff.
I don't know if
but I mean, you don't have to. You cross the line into Wilkes County, you don't even have to go too far to find some moonshine. It's not like you have to go underneath the speedway. So it's
I'm gonna say I bet that's not the only one around that area.
No. Just taking a wild guess. You can go to Uncle Earl's up the street and probably get some. But anyways, touching on some of the racing actions from this past week, hitting on NASCAR at COTA. 2 of the series had really good racing, mainly because cautions were brought out. The Cup Series, there was no cautions. It might have been a little bit different because of the sun wasn't beating on the track. It was an overcast day. That might have caused a way where tires didn't wear as much. Penalty comes into question when you're cutting the corners or where you're not cutting it's very confusing for all the drivers. There's not a consistent penalty that NASCAR brings out. Truck race finished in overtime, but Corey Heim was the class of the field that whole day. And Xfinity, that was the most exciting race I've seen in Xfinity. I was all pumped up and getting ready for the Cup race the next day after seeing Xfinity. After Larson took tires, restarted 17th with about 5-ish laps to go. Ended up eventually getting a green-white checkered. And that's a long way. What's that?
2 of them.
Yeah. And that's a long ways to go in COTA. And fantastic racing and bumping and banging. And Larson took advantage of it and gets the win in Xfinity. The Cup race, it was a snooze fest. I'm just going to call it like it was.
Yeah, that was bad.
There was no tire wear, exact opposite of what we saw at Bristol. No fall off like we saw with Xfinity. I don't know if it was obviously it's a different type of tire, but I don't know what the compound was that Goodyear brought. Clearly wasn't the one that they should have brought. Christopher Bell's in some controversy with Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch wanted to pretty much take a swing on him, and Christopher Bell looked like he was scared shitless in that. But William Byron, he was the fastest all day long. You can't take that away from him. But like, another big headline is that Alex Bowman gets another top 5. He is on a streak right now, and he's rolling.
Yeah, he really goes very well there for whatever reason that suits his driving style and whatnot. But as far as the penalties they were giving out at COTA, the dumbest rule they had was they only had an out of bounds on the S's. Either make it the freaking racetrack or not. I mean, either have this thing where if you're going to cut the corner on any corner, that's why. The other corners, they're going through the dirt, that's okay. But the S's, they get all 4 wheels inside the paint, all of a sudden you're out of bounds. And they were talking about it in the Xfinity race, and they were saying, like, you're racing and following somebody, you don't really know exactly where that paint starts and stops. Everybody thought that was a stupid rule.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think there really is a rule with that at really any other road course that they go to, like Watkins Glen, Sonoma. I mean, obviously, if you cut the entire bus stop at Watkins Glen, that's a penalty. But if you go through the S's, there's grass there. So if you cut through the grass, I mean, have at it. You'll probably spin out. So I don't really know what the fix is. I mean, it's a similar type penalty if you cut the dog leg at the Roval. So I don't know how they can go about fixing it. I don't think it was that big of a deal that some drivers were cutting it. I think it made it actually a little bit more exciting. I mean, I don't really know.
Whatever they call those turtles right there on the inside of those corners. So if you cut it, you're going to really screw up your car. I mean, it's as simple as that. I think even Larson said put something in there to give you the out of bounds rumble strips or something.
Yeah.
It'd probably have to be something that's removable because Formula One's going to use the whole racetrack wherever they want.
They did that at the Indy Road Course, if you remember. They
Yeah, and
added some of those.
it didn't hold up, but I mean, it's
I mean, yeah,
just make it the dirt is out of bounds or whatever.
Yeah, they'll have to figure out something. I think it would have been a lot better of a race, obviously, if there was a different tire that was brought there, showed some tire wear for the Cup Series. Maybe that's something they could look at for next year because I really like the facility. It's a beautiful facility. It's a great road course.
I said this would be a really neat place to visit. It's really, really neat.
And I think that they need to have some sort of how SRX was doing was just like competition cautions or whatever they were called. They need to throw that in throughout the race because you're not having cautions.
No restart. I mean, the only time you were going to get anything exciting is on a restart.
And this is exactly how Formula One gets when somebody leads 700 seconds ahead of somebody. And actually, the crazy thing was, speaking of Formula One, real quick, Verstappen didn't win, so that was pretty crazy.
Oh, wow.
He finished like last. I think he and Lewis Hamilton were off the pace. I don't know what's going on with that, but anyways, yeah. So that pretty much wraps up COTA. 2 smaller series, pretty good racing. Cup Series, they need to work on some stuff. We'll preview Richmond a little bit later.
I think it was Junior said. Maybe it wasn't just, or Junior or Denny Hamlin. They said racing would be better if they shortened the track, make it not a 3.5 mile track, shorten it.
Maybe, but some of the excitement in Xfinity was because it was such a big track.
But this is true.
So I don't really know if that's the fix. But let's go over everything else that happened in racing. Touching on NHRA real quick, there's no official winners in any of that. So the biggest thing was that they're going to take whatever they have left, they're taking that to Arizona here next week, and they will finish it up. I think Arizona's
a weird rule.
Yeah. So, I mean, hey, at least they're getting it in. It's a completely different track. So whatever setup you had at Pomona is going to be completely different in the desert in Arizona. So
yeah, and they do this during, if I'm correct on this, they'll actually finish the final round during their qualifying sessions.
Yeah.
So it really doesn't. But the one thing I noticed they closed one whole side of the grandstands off. And this is Pomona. This place is usually packed, and the rest of the grandstands were 3/4 empty. Now I know they'll understand the weather was a little bad, but that was unreal for Pomona to shut down one whole side of the grandstands. I don't think I've ever seen that in NHRA. Usually they have very good crowds.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, it could have been, especially Pomona. I mean, that's one of the.
I mean, that's the birthplace of drag racing and whole deal. That was really surprising.
And I know with anything else, the prices of drag racing is going up. That's kind of how it is. That could be a big part of it. We'll see how it transpires the rest of the season. You'd think, especially with big names like Tony Stewart in the series, that they would keep drawing crowds. So we'll see what it does in Arizona, and we'll look forward to that next week when we dive into it. IndyCar, there's another snoozer, if you will. We were looking forward to this, the $1 Million Showdown, which actually was $500,000 for the winner. The whole purse was $1 million. So we were wondering about that, and after watching it, it was really neat. The concept is really cool. It's kind of like if you're going to some private country club to do golf. That's essentially what this was for racing.
Facility. I mean, the track itself was kind of shitty looking for being, a private racetrack compared to what you just watch COTA, and then you see that track. The asphalt's kind of shot.
Well, they don't put on racing events there though. Literally a test facility. But I mean, of course, you got this one right. My guy didn't even make the damn race. He finished dead last in his heat because and that was a dumb rule. Like, you shouldn't have really any rules of driving too aggressive for this race. There's no points on the line. You should race until the wheels fall off. Who cares? But I mean, Polo, the fastest car all day. There was no question how. They were like, well, if this guy does this strategy, I'm like, ain't nobody catch it. He can have fresh tires. He can have 13 tires. It don't matter. He's not going to catch Alex. But that thing was a rocket ship. They had something figured out. So I'd like to see them do this, maybe switch it up to different places you wouldn't really see, maybe possibly different countries. I know they've done it in Australia before. They mentioned that on the broadcast, I think, in the early 2000s. That'd be cool to do something like that. Somewhere they don't always go. I think that would be really cool to do. I like the concept. I
Yeah,
like the
they
drivers
should have
racing
had
for money.
like a mandatory green flag pit stop or something to make, give a little bit of, only way Pelot was not going to win that thing is if he had some kind of a pit issue. Like they stopped every 10 laps, and they weren't allowed to change tires, which I thought was just kind of a stupid rule. Some of the rules I think were designed to not give good racing. I think they should have had some kind of, and maybe they'll learn from their mistakes, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's a little test run. I doubt they would go back there to that place. Well, like I said, I like that concept for IndyCar. I think they could draw some crowds if they go to places that they don't usually. Honestly, I'd like to see them do a double header. I've been saying it on the Roval with the Cup Series. I mean, Roger Penske owns damn IndyCar.
Yeah,
That'd be exciting.
bring the
You do a
North
double header.
Wilkesboro
Yeah, that'd be interesting. They
All-Star
run
night
really
with the Indy cars and Cup cars on the same night.
like a double All-Star race. That'd be pretty cool.
They'd get that. They fly around North Wilkesboro, especially
Pretty sure
being
Larson
repaved.
raced in it. Larson probably raced double header in it. All right, well that does it for the asphalt races this past week. Yeah, so
All right, we got to give a shout out to one of our partners, Viator. If you want to book your next destination vacation, check out my friends over at Viator.com. So many great places, so many great deals, organized on one website for you. Check the link down below. Click on it. Check all the places you need to go to. From Los Angeles to New York to Tokyo to Australia. Wherever you want to go, Viator's got it. Check them out. Click the link down below. Back to the show.
going into dirt, World of Outlaws once again is taking the headlines because that's all we got right now, but not too much longer for that. Unfortunately, the best track name in the entire country rained out. Big O, sorry. Mother Nature had other plans. But Kennedale, the makeup date for Kennedale, put on a really good show. Really, it was a dominant race by Carson Macedo. But David Gravel was making it a race at the end. And if it was probably one more lap, he would have gotten him.
Yeah, I mean, he won off the front row, but at no point was he ever checked out and gone. He was, wasn't definitely like Alex Below. Lap cars got a little exciting there, and like I said, people, if you have not been watching the Outlaw dirt racing, the sprint cars, we don't really follow the late models any, but watch it on YouTube the next morning. It's about a 10 to 15 minute show. It shows you all you need to do. The racing has been absolutely. We had one kind of a snooze fest, but the racing has been great, and I think it's been 8 races, 8 different winners.
That's right. And the technically the points leader, I told you, I'm right at this point. Giovanni Selzi has the points lead. He is tied at the top with David Gravel. And I believe it's Donnie Schatz in third. He's just 16 points behind. Nobody's really out of it at this point. But yeah, I told you, dark horse Gio Selzi. I don't know why I had him on my radar, but I'm kind of looking smarter than I actually am. So that's always good. Before we preview the Outlaws coming up, this week's trivia for you actually has to do with dirt this time. We'll see how good your memory serves you for sprint cars and dirt racing as a whole. So first of all, kind of first part of this, how many World of Outlaw champions have there been? And do you know when the Outlaws actually started? What year?
About 1976.
1978 was the
Okay, I was close. Yeah, Ted Johnson was the original founder of World Outlaws. Let's see. Champions, we've had Steve Kinzer like 20 times.
Oh, if you want to name them, go ahead.
We've had Steve Kinzer. We've had Sammy.
Yeah.
We've had Schatz. We've had Blaney.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm drawing a blank on what his name is.
Last year's
Danny
champion.
Lasowski?
Yeah. Last year's champion.
Yeah, Brad Sweet.
Yep. You're missing, I think, 2, 4.
Is it that many?
He's a relative of Steve Kinzer.
Oh, Mark. I forgot
Yep.
about Mark.
He's a 2-time champion. Potentially going to race 69K this year.
Oh, Darren Pittman won an Outlaw championship?
2013.
Okay. Pittman.
And there you got 2 of them left. I don't know if you'll get these. I'm not really familiar with them.
Wolfgang never won it.
No, he didn't race enough consistently.
Bobby Allen never won it. Huh.
Bobby Davis Jr.
Oh, no kidding. I didn't know he
1989.
won. Yeah, he used to run the Weichert car. I mean,
And the 2-time champion Jason Myers.
No kidding. Jason Myers won it.
Twice.
Did
Do you know
not
who won the
that.
first one?
What's that?
Do you know who won the first championship?
Probably Steve Kinzer.
Yeah, he won the first 2 or 3, and the first one to actually dethrone him was Sammy. Sammy got back to back in the early 80s.
When the Outlaws first formed, they had some interesting rules. Any race throughout the country, if it paid at least $2,000 to win, you would get Outlaw points. So Williams Grove always paid $2,000 to win. So like Lynn Paxton and the guys there, they actually had a decent amount of Outlaw points just from running local shows, which was kind of I don't know what they were thinking when they did that, but that was kind of an interesting thing. And
didn't really matter because Steve won 20 of them since 1978.
Yeah, but I mean, it was just,
And Donnie Scott's obviously second in the all-time championships with 10, and then you go to Brad Sweet with 5. I thought that was an interesting question.
There's a few of them there. I didn't realize they won championships.
It's crazy that it's been around since 1978, and there's only 10 different champions. That's the craziest thing. All right,
it's tough to run a whole, for sprint cars to get the funding to run the whole year schedule. So that's
and back then they didn't have streaming, they didn't have TV rights or deals or anything.
And then
so
you had
it's
to try to
definitely
beat
tough.
Steve Kinzer every week, and that's just wasn't.
No, it didn't happen. Nope.
Not on a regular basis.
All right, so previewing the World of Outlaws this week, they've got 2 different racetracks. They're going to. I think this is the first time they've been here. I couldn't find any previous stuff.
Yes, the
Thunderbird Showdown at Thunderbird Speedway is the first race Friday night, and the Wichita Showdown at 81 Speedway. 81 Speedway is a very traditional track they go to. Looks like every year. Very good track. So let's dive into Thunderbird. You probably saw the same videos that I did. I think it was 305s that race there. They're starting to race at these 305 tracks. Looks, for me, kind of looks like Selinsgrove.
It's big. It's a good half-mile track, and the biggest thing is how is the surface going to hold up for the high-powered 410 sprint car? Holding up under a 305 that's making, I don't know what they make, 500 horsepower maybe, is one thing. When you get 950 going on, and so we'll see how that goes. Like I said, I know the Outlaws do have some say in the track preparation, so hopefully we get a nice track. I don't think you're going to see as good of a race here just because of the size of the track. The sprint cars can get spread out a little bit, especially if you get a little bit of a cushion going on there. The guy out front is just probably going to hammer down. And
I think it helps. I think it helps they're only there one day. Usually the doubleheader shows at bigger tracks like this. The second day ends up kind of being a little bit more of a snoozer. Williams Grove's typically one of those tracks that the second day is just not as good as the first. So I think it does help. There's a lot of unknowns for these guys going into it. Yeah. So that will play a big part, and that could potentially lead to people that you don't really expect to contend. And you might see some locals up there that in 305s. They said, "Screw it, let's try to get a 410, try to get some Outlaw money."
They don't even need because the Outlaws aren't going to bring that many cars, so they're going to require, so these guys can get don't know what it pays to start. It probably pays a couple $1,000 just to start an outlaw race. So you get one of those guys can happen to tag the rear. You know, they'd be better off just starting and parking it and hop on top of the trailer, drink some beer, and watch the outlaws run.
Well, yeah, the last I think 5 positions of the last outlaw race that paid $1,200 each. So I mean, just to start it, that'd be worth it for a lot of these small
That's
teams.
probably more than what they get to win.
Yeah, and that'd be if they qualify. Which I mean, if there's not a lot of cars, they'll qualify, and yeah, like you said, save your equipment, pull it in. Don't risk anything. Yeah, so I think this could be a decent race. Again, I don't think this will be good as the 81 Speedway, which we'll preview in a second. But who's your pick for Thunderbird on Friday?
Well, you said, maybe an unknown, and I wouldn't call this guy an unknown, but you might not really think about him for an outlaw winner. But he's been fast. The Toyota holds together. Buddy Kofoid.
Are you kidding me? I'm using
Are you serious?
I'd never thought that we'd have the same one here. I use the logic of the Toyotas are having a lot of power lately. They have shown a lot more speed on these bigger tracks. I'm like, yeah. And I don't think McFadden's racing this year, so or at least in the Outlaw series, at least full time. Yeah, I'm going with Buddy as well. I have it written, I promise. And I use the logic like the Toyotas, they've been performing at the bigger tracks. The smaller tracks, kind of anybody's race, and I think you gotta have a little bit more experience, a little more willing to dive it into the corner, a little bit harder. Buddy is good at kind of managing a race, letting the track come to him, and if the engine's rolling, and the Toyotas have been. They had some issues early with blowing up and stuff, but I think they fixed it. I think you can see. I don't even know if he made the show last time. I didn't even see him in the results. I don't even know if he made it out there.
He had the last race. I don't remember if he was in a crash or had a flat.
Yeah,
it was. He dropped out, but he's been in the mix, just hasn't had the finishes yet.
All right, well, heading Saturday to the Wichita Showdown at 81 Speedway. I like this track a lot. A little bit different than Thunderbird Speedway.
Yeah, this is a 3/8 mile track, and it's actually, I mean, it's probably a good 3/8 mile track. In my mind, it's probably closer to the size of probably Lincoln. Probably not quite as big as Susquehanna or Paps or whatever the hell they call it now, but because the interesting fact on this track, the 410 track record is 13.207 by Travis Whitney on August 20th, 2004.
So they probably won't get the track record.
That's definitely pre-weight rule track record.
Likely.
So I don't, I'm really surprised. I mean, they've been breaking just the amount of horsepower we're making now compared to 2004. We're making another 150 horsepower, so I can't believe they haven't broke that record yet. So that's why I think it's hard to watch it on video. You can't really tell the size of it, but it seems like it's a pretty big track for a 3/8 being, 13.2's track record. So
yeah,
that's a good size track.
And I think this will bring some good racing. I think this week will be not as great racing as we've been spoiled to this year. They're not a couple boring tracks that they're going to. So, yeah, I think we'll see some decent stuff. So, I'm going to give you my pick so it doesn't seem like I'm copying it right now.
Yeah, we got the
same. This guy's been pretty good all year. I'm waiting for him to start knocking off some wins consistently. I think this track fits him pretty well. He usually runs decent here. I'm going with Logan Schuchart.
Okay. No, we do not have the same pick. I got the first repeat winner of the year. I'll go David Gravel.
All right.
He's been running, second to last 2 or 3 races. So yeah, he's about due to knock off.
And he's pretty good at 80. Well, he's good at any of the tracks. It don't really matter unless he has some issues or Brad Sweet's there. He's going to be fine. All right, well, that does it for the dirt racing segment this week. So heading into previewing NASCAR. It's only NASCAR this week. So before we head into that, obviously, let's give our top fives. Our top fives this week, everybody has been waiting on the top 5 father-son duo drivers of all motorsports. There's going to be some controversy, I'm sure. And mine is majority NASCAR. There's a lot of father-sons that have raced in NASCAR, more prevalent than some other racing. There's some Formula One guys that have raced. There's some Formula One slash NASCAR, like Jacques Villeneuve and his dad. They've raced. So, I mean, honorable mentions there. But this is who I've got. I'm going to go with my top five. So starting at number five, and this might already piss some people off at the way I have them this low, but other than his dad, there wasn't a whole lot majorly accomplished in the Cup Series. But I'm going with the Earnhardts, Dale Earnhardt Sr. and Dale Earnhardt Jr. Jr.'s two-time Daytona 500 winner, obviously. Senior's seven-time champion, won Daytona. He's won everything. He's done it all. But when you look at it, Jr. never won a championship. Yes, he was the most popular driver for 15, 16 years in a row, however long he was in NASCAR. So they definitely earn a spot in the top five for sure in father-son duos, but I don't think they're going to be for me above any of these other guys here. So my number four is the Jarretts, Ned and Dale Jarrett. Combined 82 wins, 3 championships in the NASCAR Cup Series, 2 Hall of Famers. I mean, just like the Earnhardts, but you can't deny how successful they were, and they were actually very good in the booth. And Dale Jarrett still does a great job in the pre-race show and the trackside shows for NBC as well. So I've got the Jarretts at number four. Number three, I've got Mario and Michael Andretti. Combined 153 total wins. Obviously, Mario raced in a lot of different series, kind of the original Kyle Larson, if you will. 5 total championships. The Andretti's just an iconic name in racing. I've got to give my props to them. They're at number 3. Number 2, I've got Bobby and Davey Allison. I mean, you can throw in all the Allisons if you want. I'm just going to go with the 2. They've I mean, I don't. What can you say? Two of the best, two of the better NASCAR racers of all time, all up in there in the all-time wins, championships. Yeah, I mean, you can't deny any of that. And they also had a 1-2 finish in Daytona 500, which is pretty cool. And number 1, the Petties, Richard and Lee. I mean, 254 wins, 10 championships between the two of them. Obviously, Richard did a lot of the legwork with the wins-wise, but he also raced a lot longer than Lee. But, I mean, they kind of set the standard of racing back in the day and how things needed to get done. So, yep, Richard, Lee, Petty, my number 1. So go ahead with your 5.
That's a good list. We're slightly different. But I tried and wanted to go through, and I wanted to put a dirt racer in. And my criteria is I wanted to make sure that the father and son actually raced in the same series together. So that would leave like Bobby Allen and Jacob Allen out. They never actually raced together. So at number 5 for dirt, I got Jack and Sheldon Haudenschild. They did race together on the Outlaw circuit together, just a little bit, but that was probably the best of the dirt racers. Craig and Steve Kinzer did it. I mean, Craig did win Knoxville Nationals, but I just
not quite up there. Yeah, not quite up there.
Yeah, there's a lot you could put on this list, and this one's one I'm not sure if they actually raced together or not. I really didn't look that up. I think they did, but I have the Unzers, Al Unser Senior and Junior. Yep. And that one at number 4, and they're ranked, but you could almost interchange most of these. And number 3, this is probably definitely lower than yours, but I have the Petties, Lee and Richard Petty at number 3. Main reason, people just did not like them because they've been accused that they've had so much better equipment than everybody else, but you know what?
Sorry about it.
Won all those races.
Yeah, sorry about it.
Say what you want. So, and number 2, I have the Andretti's, Mario and Michael. They came so close to, I think it was almost a 1-2 finish at Indy, and neither one of them ended up finishing the damn race. It was a crazy thing. And at number 1, my personal favorite drivers, and they can say what they want about the Earnhardts and Dale Sr. not being the most popular driver. I call bullshit on that. He was definitely more popular than Bill Elliott. Just because you don't like him does not make him not popular. So yeah, at number one, I got the Earnhardt's Dale Senior and Junior, just because they're my guys.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, you're gonna
Yeah, I
put a
mean,
little bit of.
like I said,
But
you could sort of at least the top four, you could almost mix and match those things. Anywhere. It's honorable mention. You got Billy Pouch Senior and Junior in the modifieds. I mean, there's just
yeah,
Johnny Mackison Senior, Johnny Mackison Junior. I mean, there's been a
yeah.
lot of father and son racing. That's it's hard to narrow that down to five.
Well, that does it for this week's top five. We're not going to do top five next week. Obviously, a lot more racing to cover for that. But in the meantime, if you guys have a top five that you want us to rank and look at, comment in the down below for us. Let us know, and we will see what we can make happen. I've got some ideas that we'll do next week. But yeah, just let us know what you're kind of thinking. I think this is actually a good time. Speaking of father son like duos in general. We've been talking off the record about this, and I just want to mention it at least on the air or on something. Um, and it's kind of crazy that he's not in it yet. But your brother, my uncle, Davy Brown Jr. is we're basically petitioning that he goes into the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame in Knoxville. I feel like it's long overdue, and I don't think a lot of people realize how much he actually did in the 80s, specifically with Wolfgang, because he actually mechanicked that car. Pop did the engine work for it, but he was the one actually making the calls and making the on-track, in-track adjustments. So if you want to shed some light on it, you know a lot more. You were back in that era. I never really knew Davey, so I mean, you can uh, yeah, the floor is yours on that.
Yeah, even before Wolfgang, when I can remember. I don't remember what year it was. They just put a team together. Apple House was the spot. They were an apple cider company or something like that, and they wanted to put a sprint car team together. They ran late models, so they hired Kramer Williamson to be the driver, and I think they had about 10 days to build a car and come out for I think it was the Williams Grove National Open. So even back then, which was mid to late 70s, Davey was putting the car together. Dad was doing the engine. That's just sort of how that whole thing was. And they went out. They put that car together last minute. Went out and won the National Open. Davey went on the road some. I think it was 95 and 96. Won two All-Star titles with Dale Blaney in the Hughes 94 car. And I believe it was 93. He was actually the mechanic for Donnie Kreitz, which people probably don't even realize some of that Davey was with Kreitz, and they won the Williams Grove National Open. And of course, we got the Knoxville. And with the Weichert cars, it was pretty much Davey was at the Weichert shop every day doing the cars, and and then Dad was at his shop doing the engines, and then it was together. I think because maybe they got the same name, even though Davey's not actually a junior. Uh, Maybe some of the like, hey, because it said mechanic Davy Brown on the car. Well, that was for both of them. So maybe he got a little bit overshadowed. I know when in '85, when the first time Doug won the King's Royal, Davy's wife just passed away, so he didn't go. So it was just me and Dad, a couple of the other guys on the crew. And Dad said, he said we'd have won way easier if Davy would have been there. So that's how good Davy was. And I don't think he probably gets the recognition, probably just getting overshadowed by Dad a little bit. And especially now with Dad still going on at 90, it makes it kind of putting the way. But I would love to. I tried emailing the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame. I never got anything back. I don't know who to contact. I mean, I think he's more than deserving to be in it.
Well,
There's other guys that don't have near the resume he's got that have been in it.
I think this is a good platform to share it. We'll clip this portion, tag as many people as we can. A lot of drivers that knew him. I mean, personally,
drivers, crew, and
we
everybody.
I mean, yeah, we know I mean, we know a lot of people, so between you and I, somebody should be able to. Williams Grove answers my stuff, so at least they'll see it because I know for sure they've been very good at responding. Port Royal's been very good at responding, and at this countless wins that you can't really account
we
really
were
any
never
for.
one to
Just
really-
like you can't really account
Yeah.
for any of the races that Pop's been a part of that he's won. It's just too difficult in dirt racing. But the major accolades that you said, I think that more than enough deserves a spot in the hall. And obviously, like I said, I unfortunately didn't get to know him. He passed too early for me to really know who he was. But I think that'd be really cool for the family to have, and I think it'd be really cool to have him in the Hall of Fame, especially with Pop in there and those kind of side by side. That'd be really, really special.
Yeah, that would definitely make a trip out to Knoxville on the books for sure.
I mean, yes, and I don't know who would be willing. I mean, I would assume you'd be the one to have to accept it on his behalf. You know more of those.
Dad might do it.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'd all go out there.
Yeah.
Most of us would definitely have to go out there. I mean, that would be a very special moment in the family. That would be really cool. So, hey, Knoxville, let's make it happen. Feel free to contact us. Contact my dad more. He's the one that can give you more information on everything. Hopefully this will get out there, and I hope the word gets out. So, all right. So moving on to our final segment. We're heading into Richmond this week for the Xfinity and the Cup races in NASCAR. Richmond, I the last couple of years been pretty boring, especially in the Cup Series. I think hopefully they have a decent tire fall off on this one, because if they do, they bring a similar type of setup that they had at Bristol. I think Richmond could be a very good race for the Cup Series in this next gen car.
Yeah, I was actually going to say, normally I would get really excited for a Richmond race. It used to be such great racing, and then went to this car. I don't know, this car on the short track, it just doesn't work real well unless you have a ton of tire fallout. You know, I don't want to see it end up like Bristol, where they're just destroying the tires. You want to see the fall off, but you want to see the tires not be dangerous to run. So that's, I mean, that's a wishful thinking and a fine balance that we want from there. But Richmond's one of those tracks, even only a 3/4 mile, it's not unusual for somebody to get a 4 or 5 second lead out on that thing, and makes it kind of boring. So
yeah, well,
I do think the Xfinity race is probably going to be a better race than the Cup race. And this is one of those stupid things. It's Sunday night, it comes on at 7:30, something like that.
Oh, it is a night race?
Yeah.
It is, yeah. Well, well, it's Easter. That's probably why they're like, well, everybody's off. Well, not everybody's off at Easter Monday. Sorry about it.
I gotta get up at 4 o'clock.
I do like I'm glad that Richmond's going under the lights for this one. I love it when it's under the lights. It's fantastic.
Yeah,
so that might make a significant difference in this race. It's going to have a lot of grip. But defending winners, Chandler Smith in the Xfinity Series. And Hendrick had a 1-2-3 finish last year with Willie B, Larson, Bowman. You kind of get to the point that there might be an odd man out now at Hendrick, and it's kind of weird that it might be Chase at this point.
He just has not been fast.
And there's a lot. There's
funny. His fans are going absolutely crazy.
Well, there's
using that given Larson and
good
equipment.
There's speculation that they're gonna move on from Alan Gustafus. That dude, his crew chief. They're gonna move on from his crew chief. He's a great crew chief.
I think he's
here's the thing.
But sometimes change is good.
Yeah, so sometimes you need to switch it up, and he could stay with Hendrick. He just move over to Bowman's car or something, and fresh set of eyes could be huge for that team. Because Chase isn't a bad racer. He's not like he forgot how to race. It's just a little bit different. But yeah, so heading to that, let's give our NASCAR fantasy lineups this week, and then we'll give our picks. So I think it's your turn to go first in the NASCAR fantasy. So give your starters that you got this week. I've got the more favorable, if you will, drivers.
Yeah, well, I would think that. So if anybody's playing NASCAR fantasy, do not put these 5 guys in because they're going to suck.
I won last week, by the way, guys. So y'all are welcome.
So this week, starting off with my 5, I have Ty Gibbs, Martin Truex Jr., Denny Hamlin, Christopher Bell, and Tyler Reddick. Hey, I got all Toyotas. I didn't realize that.
It's the Toyota Save Mart 400, whatever it's
There
called.
we go.
So, yeah.
That was just pure accident, just how that happened to come out. And in my garage, I have Chris Buescher.
All right. The
So
feature
then
matchups.
You want to do yours and then the feature matchups? Or?
No, go ahead and do all of yours.
All right, so the feature matchups. We have Christopher Bell versus Kyle Busch. I got to go with Christopher Bell on this one.
Yeah, Vegas has him too. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's they don't smack each other, and we'll see what happens there.
This next one a little tougher.
Yeah, William Byron versus Denny Hamlin. That's a tough one there. But I mean, Denny Hamlin, Virginia guy. Well, he can be hard to beat at Richmond. I got Denny Hamlin.
This next one's not easy either.
Yeah, Truex and Ty Gibbs. That's another tough one. Teammates. I'm going to go with the experience on Martin Truex Jr. And then we're just talking about Chase Elliott versus Alex Bowman. You know,
It's weird they have the odds favored on Chase.
Yeah, I do have Chase picked on that one. I can't believe he's going to keep running bad the whole time. So
Yep. Well, the only difference that we have in the featured matchups was that final one. I have Alex Bowman over Chase. So, I mean, they have Alex Bowman at plus 125 in that matchup. So, I mean, if you guys are in a state where you can do legal sports betting like North Carolina, that's a little dangerous, go ahead and sprinkle a little bit on that because I think Bowman, with that momentum, 3 races in a row, top 5s, I think you're going to see him start. He's gonna get a win here soon. All right, my starters this week in NASCAR Fantasy, I've got Kyle Larson. I'm sorry. If you're wondering, guys, yes, I jinx him a lot, but hopefully I don't jinx him. I'd be stupid not to start him. I've got Martin Truex Jr., Denny Hamlin, Christopher Bell, and William Byron as my starters. And my garage is Ross Chastain. And yeah, like I said, I feature lineups. Everybody's the same except the Bowman and Chase Elliott won. Good bet this week, Denny Hamlin, obviously. Kyle Busch is a good bet. I had him in for a second, but I'm like, let me just hold off on that. They said avoid Suarez and Tyler Reddick. I don't know how much I agree with that, especially the Reddick one. I think Reddick will have a decent race. I think a lot of Toyotas will. And they said sleepers Austin Dillon. I don't agree with that one either.
No, I don't either. But, sometimes Richmond can be kind of fast around the outside, and nobody's going to run it any better than Tyler Reddick.
Yeah. So right before the picks, like we always give, let's give our power rankings that we have for the NASCAR Cup Series. Go ahead with your top 5. Any changes?
Yeah, a little bit because it's funny. Mine actually been quite changing. But at number 1, I still got Ryan Blaney. He's not known to be a road racer, and he came with a good finish on that one. Until he really struggles, I just don't see anybody beating him. At number 2, I did not have him in last week, but I have William Byron at number 2. Right now, he's probably the fastest car, and all. I would think if it ended now, he would be the championship favorite for sure. Number 3, Denny Hamlin. There's another one. I had him at 2 last week. Kind of bumped him down just because William Byron's just been so fast. And going to Richmond, Denny Hamlin's really, really tough to beat. Down one more spot from last week, Martin Truex Jr., another one great at going into Richmond, and he's been plugging away. And also down one more spot from 4 to 5, I got Ty Gibbs. That win's coming.
So Larson falls out of your top 5. I think
Larson did fall out just because he sucked real bad.
Well, my top 2 are the same. I've still got Martin Truex Jr. as my number 1. He finished in the top 10 once again. I think in the top 10 or just outside. Blaney, same story at COTA. He's number 2. William Byron, as fast as he's been, he's back in my power rankings. He's at number 3. I've got Christopher Bell at number 4. Solid finish at COTA heading into Richmond. And I've got Kyle Larson. I bumped Denny out. And if there is a 6th, he's probably 6th. So basically, this week we'll see who finishes better and then who gets bumped in and out of the power
Yeah.
rankings. But Larson's my number 5 for this week.
Yeah, it's kind of fun adjusting them every week, just seeing how they run and what the next track's coming up.
It's very fluid, just like any type of power rankings. Is just how it goes. All right. The Xfinity Cup races, I don't know if there's any double head drivers racing the Xfinity for that are not normal. But
probably John Hunter.
Possibly. So go ahead. Who you got for your Xfinity pick on Saturday? Is it Saturday night race?
You know what? I do not know.
I'll check
this one. This one may be kind of a. I don't want to say a long shot because he's been super fast. A dark horse possibly, but I got Jesse Love.
Afternoon.
In the number 2 car.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an afternoon race. Yeah.
Okay.
It's 1:30. Really early, actually. Oh, they might race that the wheel and modifieds after that. I think that's what they do.
Possible.
I think that's what they usually do. My pick for Xfinity, I think he's going to get a win. It's coming. The new driver for Joe Gibbs this year. He's very good at Richmond. I've got Sheldon Creed. And the Cup Series pick. Who do you got?
Virginia guy. He's pretty tough to beat there. So I got Denny Hamlin.
This is the first time I've picked this guy this year. It could be the very last time I picked this guy this year. I've got a feeling, though. I'm going Kyle Larson for Richmond.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I hope you're right this week.
I won fantasy last week. Pick-wise, though, you kicked everybody's ass. Whose mom got?
Oh, Truex.
Okay. All right. Well, we're all different once again.
It took her 15 minutes to decide who she was going to pick. She's like, I want William Byron, but he won last week. I'm like, well, he can win again.
All right. Well, that does it for this week, guys. Again, the biggest thing for this one for me, and obviously for you too, let's spread the word about Davey getting into the Hall of Fame. I really want to see that happen. I think it's long overdue. I don't think there's been a conversation about it. I'm glad we're finally talking about it now. So make sure you guys follow anywhere you get your podcast. Follow on all social media platforms. We'll be sharing everything, some clips this week of specifically the Davey Brown getting into the Hall of Fame clip. Let's try to figure that out. Obviously, subscribe on the YouTube channel. Lots of stuff that's always on there. Some good stuff usually on Meme Monday. That's what I call it. And obviously, TikTok account does it too. So make sure you check all that stuff out. And yeah, I think that does it this week, Dad. And we will see you next week.
All righty. See you.